so quiet that the fire's crackling started to sound too loud, like it didn't belong in that kind of silence. It must have been around 2 a.m. when I woke up. At first, I thought it was a dream. That stupid tune, the kind that gets stuck in your head when you're a kid. An ice cream truck song, distant, but getting louder. I sat up fast. Nate was awake too, flashlight in hand, looking around like he already knew it wasn't supposed to be there. We were in the middle of nowhere. There wasn't even a road close enough for a car, let alone a truck. The song got closer, clearer, echoing through the trees. It wasn't cheerful anymore. Something about it felt off. Notes dragging like a warped tape. I could almost hear a voice under the music, something like crying, but I couldn't tell if it was real or just my brain trying to fill the silence between the broken notes. Nate whispered that we should hide, and I didn't argue. We killed the fire, crouched behind a fallen tree, and waited. The sound rolled closer until faint headlights cut through the trees, slow and deliberate, like whoever was driving knew we were there. It stopped less than 50 meters away. We set up camp near a dry creek bed, miles away from any town. The fire was small, just enough to keep the bugs away. Nate was sitting across from me, chewing on a piece of jerky like it was the last meal. We hadn't spoken much since sunset. He said the silence was peaceful. To me, it felt heavy, like the woods were waiting for something. It was supposed to be a short weekend trip, a chance to get away from the noise of the city. We'd driven 6 hours just to find a place without a cell signal. No traffic, no lights, just trees and dirt. The kind of place where if something happened to you, nobody would find out for days. By midnight, the forest was pitch black beyond the glow of the fire. I lay in my sleeping bag listening to Nate snore. Every so often, I'd hear twigs snap far off in the dark. Maybe animals, maybe wind. Out here, it was hard to tell what was alive and what had just moved because the forest wanted it to. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to sleep. The last thing I remember before drifting off was how quiet it got. I could see the shape now. White paint stained with brown streaks, like old rust or dried mud. The speaker on top of the truck just kept repeating the same jingle, each loop more distorted than the last. The doors opened. 2 men stepped out wearing dirty ice cream vendor uniforms, faces covered by oversized mascot heads. One was a clown. The other looked like a melting popsicle with holes where the eyes should have been. They moved slowly, carrying shovels. Behind them, the crying sound grew louder. For a moment, I thought maybe someone was hurt inside. Then I saw a small hand pressed against the truck's window. A child's hand. There were more faces behind it. Kids, terrified, huddled together. Nate grabbed my arm and hissed that we had to go. But I couldn't. Something in me locked. I didn't think about how stupid it was. I just knew I couldn't walk away. I told him to stay put and crept forward, keeping low. Every step I took made my chest tighter. The men started digging, not saying a word to each other, just shoveling dirt like it was routine. The crying from inside the truck didn't stop. The tension felt unbearable. I was close enough now to hear the wet sound of metal hitting soil. I wanted to yell, but my voice was gone. My throat had dried up completely. I forced myself forward, trying to keep calm, trying not to make a sound. One of the men stopped digging and tilted his head like he heard me. He turned slowly, the mascot head twitching slightly to the side. Then he started walking toward the truck as if ignoring me. I moved closer to the back door. Heart pounding so hard it hurt. When I reached the handle, I pulled it open and froze. Inside, there were maybe 7 kids, none older than 10. Their faces were pale, clothes torn. They didn't scream when they saw me. They just stared like they didn't know if I was real. I tried to whisper that I'd help them, but before I could finish, something slammed into the side of my face. I hit the ground hard, my ears ringing. The clown mask was above me, shovel raised. I rolled to the side, but the second man was already there. My leg went numb when the shovel came down again, this time across my ribs. I screamed, tried to crawl, but another blow hit my shoulder. I remember the dirt against my teeth, the sound of the jingle still playing, looping endlessly as they kept hitting me. They dragged me a few meters away, my head spinning so bad I couldn't tell up from down. I felt them dig, fast and practiced. The hole wasn't deep, but it didn't need to be. One of them pressed his hand on my neck to check my pulse. The other laughed quietly, the kind of laugh you hear from someone who doesn't see you as human. When they dropped me into the hole, my back hit the cold dirt. I tried to move, but couldn't. My vision flickered, black, then red, then nothing but a blur of sky. I felt the first handful of dirt hit my face, then another. It got heavier fast. At first, I could still breathe. The air smelled like wet soil and blood. Then it got harder. Each breath was shallow. My body tried to jerk, to push up, but the weight pressed down. Dirt filled my mouth. I could hear the muffled crying of the kids somewhere nearby. The jingle had finally stopped. Only the dinging continued. I don't know how long I was under before I passed out. My last clear thought was that I didn't want my body to rot here nameless next to whatever graves they'd dug before mine. When I woke up, I couldn't see anything. Everything was heavy and silent, but I could still move one hand, barely. My fingers brushed against the packed dirt. It took everything I had to move even a little. My chest burnt with every breath, like my ribs were stabbing my lungs. Then, gunshots, distant but real. 2 of them. Then shouting. A man's voice yelling orders. I clawed at the dirt above me, trying to push through, even if it tore my nails off. I managed to get my hand halfway out. Cold air hit my skin. Footsteps ran past, then Nate's voice. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew it was him. I moved my fingers barely. He saw. The next thing I remember was the dirt being ripped away from my face, light stabbing my eyes. Nate was there, and 2 men in ranger uniforms were with him. They pulled me out, and I collapsed, coughing up mud. The rangers kept their guns pointed toward the truck. The kids were still alive, shaken, crying, but alive. The mascots were on the ground, one dead, the other bleeding out, still holding the shovel. Later, one of the rangers told Nate they weren't supposed to carry guns. They'd heard reports of strange vehicles and missing kids, so they started patrolling armed, just in case. That night, it saved all of us. By morning, the police arrived. They taped off the area, counted the graves. There were 12. 12 before me. I watched them carry out the kids, each wrapped in a blanket. They said the truck had no plates. The men had fake IDs. Nobody knew where they came from. The jingle still played when they towed the truck away. Nobody touched the speaker. It just kept looping by itself until the battery finally died. Nate didn't talk much after that. Neither did I. We stayed at a ranger station for 2 days before heading home. We never talked again. It's not like he tried, and I know he saved me, but he left me to die in the first place. Was it my fault to rush there to save the kids? Probably. But he was my friend, and he wasn't there.
I sell ice cream from a truck. Nothing fancy, just a metal box that stinks of sugar and diesel. Every afternoon I park near the park and wait for kids to scream their orders. It's the same noise every day. The hum of the generator, the music that loops until it drills into your skull, and the sound of coins hitting the counter. I don't think much while I work. I just scoop, hand over the cone, take the cash, and wait for the next one. That day was like any other. Too hot, too bright. The inside of the truck felt like standing inside a freezer full of sweat. Around 6, when the crowd usually thins out, a man appeared. I noticed him because he didn't move like the rest. He didn't even blink when he stared at the tubs. He just stood there, pale, thin, and shaking slightly like he hadn't eaten in days. When I asked what he wanted, he pointed at everything. Every single flavor. I laughed at first, but he didn't react. I filled the cups one after another until my hands hurt from scooping. He watched the whole thing like a predator waiting for the right moment. When I gave him the bags, he pressed them against his face and walked away without a word. I should have locked the truck and gone home early. He came back the next day. Same hour, same look. His skin was worse this time, sweaty and red, like he'd been running a fever. He didn't say a thing, just pointed at the freezer again. I told him I was low on stock, that I couldn't sell that much. He didn't move. His breathing was loud, heavy, almost animal. I gave him a few scoops to make him leave. He took them, turned around slowly, and walked off. When the door shut, I stayed there, frozen. I don't know why, but my hands were shaking. I tried to laugh it off, told myself he was just some addict or drifter, but something about him stuck in my head. The way he stared at the cold like he worshipped it. That night I dreamt of the freezer. In the dream, I was trapped inside it, surrounded by tubs of melted colors. I could hear someone breathing under the ice, and it was hungry. I woke up sweating, the smell of sweet cream still in my throat. I should have stayed home the next day, but I didn't. When I parked again, he was already waiting. Not near the sidewalk this time. Right in the middle of the street, like he'd been standing there for hours. His eyes looked hollow, his lips were blue, and his shirt was covered in stains I didn't want to identify. I almost drove away, but I didn't. I opened the window. He climbed closer without saying a thing. His breathing rattled like a broken engine. He pointed at the tubs again. I told him no. I didn't even finish the word before he moved. His hand slammed against the counter so hard that the metal bent inward. The sound echoed inside the truck like a gunshot. My throat went dry. I backed up toward the freezer door, but he climbed halfway into the service window. The generator hummed behind me. The light flickered once, and he was already inside. Everything slowed down after that. His body hit mine, knocking me into the freezer. His hands grabbed my neck. I smelled his breath. It reeked of spoiled milk and sugar. He shoved my face into a tub of vanilla. The cold hit like a punch. My mouth filled instantly. I tried to breathe and swallowed nothing but frozen air and cream. My chest screamed for oxygen. I kicked, clawed, pushed back. He didn't even flinch. His hands were shaking, but his strength was unreal. I could hear him mumbling something, words I couldn't understand. My vision started to go dark. He pulled my head up for a second, and I coughed out chunks of ice cream, blood, and spit. The pain in my chest was unbearable. I could barely see. Then he slammed me down again, this time into chocolate. The freezing pain made me gasp, and more ice cream forced its way into my nose. I thought I was going to pass out. I heard voices outside, the neighbors probably, feet running toward the truck. The door slid open and someone shouted. I tried to move, but he lifted me by the collar like I weighed nothing and threw me against the counter. The metal cracked. I heard someone enter behind him. Then screams. He turned on them like an animal. One man barely stepped inside before being tossed out through the open door. Then another tried to grab him from behind, but the stranger smashed his head into the freezer so hard that the lid broke off. The sound of skull against metal is something I'll never forget. The whole truck shook. I was crawling toward the driver's seat, half blind, my lungs burning, my throat raw from the cold. My hands slipped on melted cream mixed with blood. I reached for the window. I thought I could make it. I almost did. He grabbed my legs and dragged me back. My knees scraped against the metal floor. I kicked, screamed, clawed at the frame, but he was stronger. I could feel his nails cutting into my ankles. He pulled me toward the freezer again, panting like a dying dog. He shoved me down beside the tubs and started eating straight from them. No spoon, no hesitation, just handfuls of ice cream stuffed into his mouth, his teeth grinding against the frozen surface until they cracked. Blood poured from his gums, mixing with the colors. He didn't care. He just kept eating, shaking violently like he was trying to feed something inside him that wouldn't stop screaming. He looked at me once, and I saw his face covered in red and white, chunks of ice and blood dripping from his chin. His pupils were wide and glassy, and I realized he wasn't even looking at me. He was looking through me. I tried to crawl again, but he slammed his fist down on my chest, knocking the air out of me. I thought he'd killed me right there. The only sound in the truck was his chewing and the dull hum of the generator. Then, faintly, I heard sirens. He froze. For a few seconds, he didn't move. Then he started shoving more ice cream into his mouth, faster, desperate, like he needed to eat all of it before they arrived. His breathing turned sharp, ragged and high-pitched. His hands bled as he scraped the tubs empty. The police arrived fast. The blue lights flashed through the truck windows. I couldn't move. My body felt like it was made of concrete. When they opened the back door, they found him kneeling in front of the freezer, his mouth full, his eyes rolled back. He didn't react when they shouted. He just laughed through a mouthful of melted ice cream. They dragged him out, kicking and laughing, the sound wet and broken. Even while cuffed, he kept reaching for the freezer, trying to scoop more from the air. When they finally got him outside, I could see the state of the truck. Tubs overturned, floors soaked, blood and melted sugar covering everything. I sat there, shaking, my throat raw, face swollen. I remember staring at the freezer, completely empty. Not a single trace left. The air inside was freezing cold, even though the generator had stopped. They told me later he'd eaten until his body gave up, that his stomach had ruptured before they even got him to the station. He was still smiling when he died.
I was 16 when I started buying ice cream from that truck. It came every afternoon around 5. Kids loved it. Parents trusted the guy who drove it because he'd been around for years. His name was Mr. Hale. He was always quiet, always smiling too much. People thought he was just awkward. I thought so too. The weird part was the flavors. He had too many. Most ice cream trucks around here had maybe 8 or 9 options. He had more than 20. Some of them had names I'd never heard before. Things like Tommy's Delight, Rachel's Cream, Milo's Mix. They sounded like jokes or homemade flavors, but each name sounded like someone's name. He lived only 3 blocks away from me. I found that out one day when the truck broke down near the end of his route. He walked home pushing a cart full of empty tubs. I followed him without thinking much about it. I just wanted to know where he kept all that ice cream. When he went inside his house, I waited behind his fence for a while. The truck stayed parked outside. I remember thinking, what if I just look around? Just a quick look, that's all I wanted. That's what I told myself anyway. The back door wasn't locked. I pushed it open and went straight into his garage. It smelled sweet at first, but not in a good way. Too strong, like something that had gone bad under the sugar. The lights were off except for one lamp on a workbench. There were big plastic tubs stacked everywhere, with white labels on them. Each label had a name written in black marker. First names, nothing else. It looked like he was making special orders. For a second, that's what I thought. Then I saw the pictures. Next to some of the tubs were small printed photos taped to the lids. Faces, smiling faces. I recognized 2 of them from missing posters around town. The girl from the gas station, the guy who disappeared after work last summer. I remember just staring at the photos, not really believing they were real. My hands started shaking. I told myself to get out, to just walk away, but I couldn't move. I needed to know what was inside one of those tubs. I stood there for a moment, just trying to breathe normal again. The house was silent. I didn't hear Mr. Hale anywhere. I picked one tub at random. The name said Jacob, and below it, Chocolate Swirl. I opened it. It looked like regular ice cream, brown and smooth. I leaned closer. The smell hit me like metal mixed with milk. I thought maybe it was spoiled. I dipped a finger in, tasted a little, and that was enough. The flavor wasn't right. The texture was oily, heavy. Beneath the chocolate was something salty, like blood. My stomach turned fast. It all clicked. The names, the photos, the flavors. I remembered the taste from the cones I'd bought before. I realized what I had eaten. I threw up on the floor. The sound was loud, too loud. The garage echoed like a cave. A chair scraped upstairs. Then footsteps. He'd heard me. I froze. Then I heard his voice call from the kitchen. It was slow, calm. "Who's there?" I didn't move. The sound of his shoes came closer. I panicked and looked around for a way out. The garage door was too heavy to lift quietly. The only other door was to the basement. I went for it. The stairs creaked under my weight. The smell got worse as I went down. Wet concrete, bleach, and everything else underneath. When I reached the bottom, I heard crying. There were people down there. 5 or 6, men mostly. One of them couldn't have been older than me. Their wrists were tied, some with rope, some with metal chains bolted into the wall. They were thin and pale. None of them screamed when they saw me. They just stared, like animals that had given up on noise. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. I couldn't untie anyone fast enough. I couldn't even find where the chains were locked. Before I could move, the door above me slammed. Heavy footsteps came down. The light bulb at the top of the stairs flickered as he came down. He was holding a knife and a phone. He didn't look angry, just focused. He went straight to one of the teenagers in chains. The kid was shaking, crying. Mr. Hale told him if he said where I was hiding, he'd let him go. An eye for an eye. The boy hesitated, then pointed right at me. He saw me immediately. I thought he would stab me. Instead, he smiled a little. He said my name. I didn't know how he knew it. Then he said my brother's name. My little brother. That froze me harder than the knife. He told me he was friends with my dad. Then he knew where we lived, what time my brother left for school. He said he didn't want to hurt me. No, too much trouble. And my father was his friend. Mr. Hale nodded like it was good behavior. Then he looked back at me and dropped the knife on the floor between us. He said I had one chance. I could walk out of there alive if I killed the boy who gave me up. If I refused, he'd go to my house and kill my brother that same night. I picked up the knife. My hands were shaking so bad it almost fell. In that moment I thought, I can use this knife against him. Like knowing what I was thinking, he stepped back and pulled a gun from his coat. He aimed it at me. The message was clear. I didn't want to do it. I told him I wouldn't. He said my brother's name again, and this time it wasn't a threat. It was a countdown. The boy on the ground begged me not to. I could barely hear anything. Everything was spinning. I just did it. It's been a year since then. I work the truck now. He made me do it. He said he recorded everything, and if I told the cops, he'd show them footage that made me look like a killer. He told me no one would believe me. He He said if I stopped showing up, he'd release the video. When I hand cones to kids, I smile like nothing's wrong. I hear his voice in my head reminding me to keep the routine. I scoop, I charge, I wave. People think I'm just helping a busy man run his business. My father is proud of me. Sometimes I still taste the chocolate flavor in my mouth. It doesn't make me sick anymore. I don't even feel anything when I sell it. That scares me the most. Not the blood, not the bodies, but the part of me that's getting used to it.